So we'll spend the time on this video talking about aquatic biomes, and we won't go maybe into quite as much detail, but we will talk about some of the different areas, and you can see kind of mapped out here. So what we want to do is, again, give some characteristics on the different areas, and maybe also give you some terms. Okay, so aquatic biomes have different words that I want you to know. And here we have this photic versus aphotic. Photic means light, so where light can penetrate. And aphotic means where light does not get down to. And then we have benthic and pelagic, two other terms you should know. Benthic just means bottom, and pelagic means open. So open water would be pelagic, and then benthic zone would be on the bottom. So those are the different terms. I did, before I moved on, want to talk about thermocline here. And a thermocline is a rapid change in temperature. And so what will happen here, you can see we got 4 degrees down here, and we got 22 up here, but there's this little window right here between 8, there's a 10-degree increase in temperature, and it's important because that sets up some different I guess microclimates over the year. And so what you're going to see is spring and autumn or fall, there's a lot of mixing of nutrients, so the light can photosynthesize, all of that can be kind of mixed and everything is good. Whereas in the winter, and because of the ice lock on top, and in the summer, especially because of this thermocline, you don't get mixture. And so you can end up with dead zones. And if I'm a creature down here on the bottom, this is going to be a time where it's going to be limited, where I'm getting nutrients and things like that. So this definitely sets up throughout the year different types of situations, so organisms have to adapt. All right, let's talk about lakes first. There's some different names for lakes. And so here what we're seeing is eutrophic and oligotrophic. And eutrophic lakes are lakes that have few, our EU means true, I'm sorry, which means they have a lot of nutrients in them. And so things grow. And so here you have a eutrophic lake where you can see the plants are growing right on the edge. Again, we talked about water runoff, light, and then nutrients being right there on the edges. Oligotrophic lakes are like the one on the bottom, the Great Salt, or any lake that's really, really pristine looking. You know, that makes nice for pictures, it may make nice for swimming, but with very, very few nutrients in it, it may not be biologically a good place to live. And then we have the littoral zone, which is kind of the zone on the edge where you are getting all this growth, and then you have the limnetic zone, which is farther out. All right, rivers and streams, what I want you to know about this is moving water has its own little kind of climate, not climates, but areas, microhabitats. Running water allows for nutrients to be brought in or washed away, depending on your situation. It also is a way to clean water. Things fall out, and it actually is a good way of filtering water and things like that. So it also is, except for, you know, like the LA River, which we put in concrete, it also will kind of have its mind of its own, kind of meander and take the easiest route down. And so with that, often rivers and streams will change. And the difference between streams and rivers is really size. And then we have estuaries, and estuaries are areas that are a mixture of salt and fresh water. Our largest estuaries here in Southern California would be Newport Back Bay, and then Bolsa Chica, Pretty much San Francisco was an estuary at one point, still is, I suppose. But again, this is the mixture of salt and fresh water. That's what you want to key in on. Highly diverse habitats. Estuaries in California have been devastated. Over 90% of them have been filled in, and houses and things built on them. Wetlands. This is a different term. A wetland is an area that has water on it. That's not probably a surprise. It may not be year round, and but there's standing water sometime during part of the year. And that's the problem, is we drain these, or we build on them when they're dry, thinking, hey, not a big deal. But again, wetlands have really been decimated in the United States, unfortunately. And then we have the marine zones. Marines, the one that most people will know is maybe the intertidal zone. These are areas where you have high tide and low tide, so organisms have to deal with the idea that they are going to be covered with water parts of the day and not covered other times. So all of that brings different adaptations necessary to survive the dry, to survive the wet, to deal with sunlight and salt and predators, things like that. So, and then we got the very famous coral reefs. These are typically, surrounding some kind of area, often volcanoes or atolls. The Great Barrier Reef is probably one of the best known coral reefs. Unfortunately, that one is being devastated. Coral reefs in general, there's coral bleaching, which means the corals are dying. Very slow growing habitats, very diverse, and they're being damaged very quickly, unfortunately. I'm not sure whether they will survive and or adapt. And then the open pelagic zone is again the free swimming zone. This is where the fish are, the whales, seals, things like that. And then we have the marine benthic. And I want to talk about this. This is a vent community. Light does not, this is aphotic, so light doesn't get down there. And so what happened is they got down there with a camera, and there's a ton of life down there. And what they're finding out is, what they found out is it's not light that's driving the system, but sulfur. There are organisms that are actually converting the sulfur into energy. And then these creatures here are actually one of the big inhabitors, which are these tube worms, these polychaete worms. And they do well and make up a part. And then there's actually also a lot of echinoderms, which you don't know that yet, but relatives to sea stars and other things. There's some fish and other things, but pretty cool little habitats. All right, so the microclimates, I use that term a couple of times. What I want you to key in on is abiotic versus biotic. So abiotic factors that affect microclimates are temperature, light, water, nutrients, wind, disturbance. And then disturbance can be anything like earthquakes or some kind of changes. Biotic, on the other hand, is living things. It's either competition from individuals of your species or competition from other species. It could be predators, prey, parasites, food, all of those things. Okay, so what I want to do is just again key in on some of these ideas about these microhabitats. These are places where organisms live. And so on the left is the saguaro cactus we showed you with the desert before. And you can see kind of the Sonoran Desert, and there's only certain places where that species can actually survive. And then we have the Joshua tree on the right, and you can even see that with the climate changing, less water, drought, whatever, this used to be the ancestral in the Ice Age, where they were found, and now we can see this limited. It turns out for these guys to actually breed, they have to have a certain amount of days of freezing. It's not a lot, but there is a period of time where if they don't go through that, they will not go through their life cycle. And so what we're seeing is with this warming trend is we're not seeing And we're also having a lot of unnatural grasses out there. So when the fires do hit, the fires burn, and these Joshua trees may not survive. And here's another thing that we just want to point out with these here's an egret. It's a cattle egret, and it's not from here. But it was introduced in the late 1800s, and you can see that how it spread, and now they are in California, although they're fairly rare. I've only, I think, seen one in my life. And actually, it was right there just south of the school, and they used to run cattle right there by Brea Canyon Cutoff. But anyway, so what here is happening is these guys were not really, they didn't evolve here, but they were brought here, and they have adapted fairly well and spread because the habitats are nice, and they've got food, they do well. And what's actually missing is the predators. They don't really have a predator that attacks them, that makes it easy for them. Plus, they do well, obviously, around cattle and large animals. So the cattle industry has helped their spread. And then sea urchins. I just want to show you a picture of, here we have sea urchins when the urchins are removed, and when the urchins are present, seaweed cover. And so what happens, the urchins are actually eating seaweeds, and they keep things in control, but when you remove them, the seaweeds will explode. And you think, well, you want seaweed, you do, but if it gets too thick, that blocks out all the light, and a lot of the other creatures cannot survive. And so you can see what's happening here with ranges. What they're trying to show you on the right is that some of these things are starting to spread or move because of changes in temperature and situations. So what you're seeing is these native urchins are basically starting to expand and destroying some of the kelp. And with that, we will call it a chapter.